Okay. So again, here, uh, individual practitioners first going through Wando practice in a refuge and bodhicittas and mandala and vajrasattva purification practice. Now, while you're doing that practice, from the Mahamudra practice point of view, there is a still space of a search of a nature of a mind, So, again, this kind of like a training to able to go through. Individual practitioner first, I think you have to have some kind of like a curiosity, all phenomena, how things exist, and where it came from, how, what is the beginning, or that's some kind of like a, not just trying to coming at this moment and trying to observe. That kind of like a question or search. So basically, your form, your consciousness, and these two becomes one of the main issue that first you research. I said where it came from. So ultimately, it comes down to your mind. Mind is where it's beginningless and kind of like endless. And where the mind comes from the Buddhist point of view, there's this kind of like an answer. It is the beginningless. So, of course, we have all those theoretical answers that are ready to respond, but Mahamudra meditator, in some way, in your mind, ultimately, mind is the basis. It is not exactly talking about the Yogacharan view, which says all phenomena of nature of a mind and things, this have its own kind of way of explanations. But of course, Mahamudra teaching is talking from the point of view of a Madhyamikan point of view. So here, anyway, before going too much philosophical point of view, I think this kind of like a search you have to have. And not necessarily you have to have the conclusion that all phenomena are nature of a mind, or it arises from the mind. How do you say? For example, there's a popular speaking, this kind of search, samsara and nirvana both arise from the mind. So, anyway, this kind of not necessarily clear answer, but mind have some kind of, this is the way it comes. Like, by eliminating all another options, all phenomena should be rooted into the mind. That's the only way. If something exists from somewhere, it should be from the mind. So, konde tamchiki chepapo sem means chepapo means the doer. From the Buddhist point of view, it's not really talking of the creator, but there's no one ultimate permanent cause. But the mind plays the main cause, important, okay? Is impermanent nature. So this kind of like a foundation curiosity have to have there. Then based on that kind of curiosity, now in Mahamudra training, there is this kind of like, for example, when you're doing the Wando practice, you're doing the refuge. Of course, through the motivation and through the meditation, some level of renunciation, you have to cultivate faith towards the three jewels. And sometimes you can just, concentrate and be still meditation into that. But from the Mahamudra point of view, then it will push you one more further step. Then looking into that nature of the faith or conviction, one more step further, and then advise where is that mind. Then in the same way, then when you look at from that faith, what happens, either, I think it depends on the individual, how strong your, for example, anyway, almost that faith is the object, which is a three jewel, none able to distinguishing, or sometimes that faith is non-distinguishable from then the who have the faith, the subject person. Okay, so a spontaneous, why I'm telling this is sometimes when we have a strong negative emotion, we identify with the emotion. In a similar way, sometimes once we have a strong positive emotion, such as a faith and compassion, also there is intellectually we can different, but there is a spontaneous identifying with those strong emotions. So here, from the Mahamudra point of view, furthermore looking for that faith itself one more. And then, basically, all those another qualities, such as a object, which is the three jewels, which that's the cause of this faith, which is some level of understanding of karmic cause and effect. So the faith itself, trying to eliminate all the options and looking, not the object, not the motivation, not the person. So that kind of, I say, eliminating process into the meditation, going to the refuge, then going to this kind of process. Of course, this kind of process, while you're doing that, there's two layers. Two layers. Basically, one is what is the nature of that faith itself. You kind of like a pause in the looking. Another step is where the three jewels appear for that faith, that deep conviction mind, how it appear. So there's these two layers. Then, of course, from the Lama Tsongkhapa point of view, from the Lamrim and so on and so forth, usually give more emphasis that, if you go through the refuge practice and meditation, you have this strong conviction feeling, and then not just staying into that powerful emotion, but one more further step. From Lama Tsongkhapa point of view, it will give you more how things appear, how three jewels appear for that faith mind, that conviction mind. And that is the one way to look at it. In the Kagyu tradition, particularly, is go not so much looking towards to the how things appear for that object, that faith mind, but just looking for that faith mind, how it's, what it is. And the whole the options, eliminating all the options. Okay, and basically, it's interesting. There is this kind of like a expression, baseless, rootless. But mind itself is baseless and rootless. That's the theoretical or what's conclusion supposed to be. But in the meditation process, of course, individual need to get that conclusion. But cutting these options, eliminating all the options into the faith, that is not too difficult. But that it doesn't really complete the finding the nature of that faith. Okay, but I think it is important. Individual person go through this kind of like a, sometimes when you're trying to do that, it looks like childish, as the mind is not this is not that. Yeah, but that's but it is a very simple process. But somehow, once you have that strong emotion, how you say, the counter responding, this powerful emotion, then that simple logic, not powerful logic, but very simple logic process can become very powerful. Okay, so as basically it release some level of a pressure into that emotion process. By doing that, even you don't find able to eliminate all the options, but still you are able to, by that absence, individual able to find the nature of that faith? No, but individual person need to be concentration or stillness into that unidentifying, beyond identifying, that kind of a space. Okay, that's that's the kind of like a. But that really means that means you are finding the nature of that mind. No, I think that's the process need to be taken. So in the same way, in a Lama Tsongkhapa, in Gelug tradition, which goes through, rather than the mind itself, as I say, how things appear into that faith mind, and through that window, eliminating first the taking the object. For example, for example, now I'm trying to put out all the examples. For once you put out all the object of a distraction, mind is much more conducive. In a similar way, once whatever appear for that faith mind, and looking into that, basically in a Lamrim Chemo, they call recognizing the object of negation. Looking into that window, and then how things exist, what is, then cutting all the options, and we can make it this kind of characterize empty of inherent existence, so on and so forth. Whatever we characterize, but the beginner practitioner, almost you emptying the existence its own self. So there is like lots of way to keeping the balance. So this is just an example related with the refuge, related with also compassion. Individual person need to go through that process. Then purification practice is also same way. You have this kind of powerful regret. Based on that regret, you look in the nature of that regret, all how things appear, how it experience the regret. I think individual practitioner can do both. It's not one way or the other. I think, from my point of view, I feel this is first looking through how things appear for that subject mind, and going through that process, then going back to what's the nature of that mind itself, looking to cutting all the options, becomes much more protective. So this is up to individual's taste, doing to that. Now, once we're able to do with the virtue mind, that kind of like a meditation process, and then it makes basically, it brings us the opportunity to look at for all the mind that we experience in our daily life. Like for example, if it becomes too kind of like irritated or anger, it suggests, looking into the anger itself. What is that anger? Even in, nature of the anger itself. In a different text gives different suggestion, but one thing is the main thing is where it is. This is I feel more effective rather than what it is, the anger itself. When you take that step first, somehow, sometimes we don't want to admit that I have, and that kind of like a taking to us. We kind of hesitantly able to do that, but again, doing that first where it is in the object, in the subject, in the, and that gives us kind of like the cause of the. It gives a window to bringing up the cause of the anger closer into our mind, and by by going through this kind of process, then looking to the nature of the anger itself. Then, of course, when we are really angry, I don't know if we can do it. When we are really, really, kind of out of control. And basically, this kind of training is mentioned in a Lamrim. For example, when there's a liberation palm in hand, it gives you an example. When you are walking with your friend, you have a really deep conversation, but at the same time, make sure you step in the right path. You have some part of your mind is also aware where your paths and you're walking, but at the same time, you can have a really deep, profound conversation. In similar way, like for example, although sometimes when we are so overwhelmed by the anger, where is the possibility to look at in the nature of the anger itself? But of course, individual, I think it takes a place. I think is important. One thing is our intention plays very important role. For example, training in a Mahamudra, studying in a Mahamudra teaching, which really encourage us, at least putting a motivation, any time in my life, today, any strong emotion wants to take me over, I want to look at some kind of putting the seeds, or how you say, kind of like an alarmed clock or conscious alarm when you're trying to put there. That will also be helpful. That gives us some kind of chance to be able to look at it. So through that, it takes all the emotion, not only anger, the attachment, and ego, pride, doubt, confusion, fear, all that kind of emotion states, all these powerful emotion states. We will caught into those things, but the advice or guidelines is the two things. First, looking into the how it appears to that. Then the second is looking into the subject, mind itself, nature its own self. And again, once you looked at it, and basically the process is cutting the elimination. You have a clear identity. You have some idea. You have a kind of concretize that emotion, but by cutting the options of identity of that emotion, it's kind of like a softening. So that's the one. That. So anyway, at the beginning, what I mentioned, you have to have the foundation of all those things. It's not just somebody's telling you to do that, so you're doing that. I think by doing that only, I think it's very difficult establishing the foundation to seeing the nature of the mind. You have to have that kind of, at the beginning, even in intellectual level, or some kind of like a question in your mind, like where this comes hold everything. And the best thing is, the option is only the mind. The option is only the mind. Some things, all the material things, all the, external things, substantial things are not possibility because they're constantly shifting and changing. And very limitations there, very strongly. For the consciousness, the awareness is limitless. So anyway, I think this kind of like a curiosity and search, having as a background, and any emotion arise, positive or negative, be strong enough to look into how things appear for that and what's the nature of that. And the third step is basically individual need to go through the process of eliminating of the identity of that emotion. And these two establish the foundation to finding the nature of the mind. Okay, so somehow it's kind of like a puts you into the right direction or right track. Then, of course, to able to see the nature of the mind or find the nature of the mind, you have to have this ordinary, very limited, just very easy to distract mind, not able to experience. So here it is advised meditation into how you say, meditation into a nature of the mind. Still, it title, or when you label, it still say meditation in nature of the mind. But if you really look at into the function of that meditation, it's basically you are keeping full aware that you're not trying to control your thought, not trying to apply any kind of antidote or nothing, but at the same time you have some kind of inner discipline that you're not going to follow and roll with the emotion and thoughts that comes into your head, your mind. Okay, so that's kind of like a discipline carrying through, and that process takes in the first training. Usually what's happening is we are very strongly identifying the thoughts of the emotion, what it arises. That before this training, that elimination process or that kind of meditation, which really establish you to able to do, not to identify with your thoughts and the emotions. So this gives you a first cushion to able to meditate into a nature of the mind. But still, that process is not really you're observing a nature of mind or you experience a nature of mind. No, it's just it gives you the first cushion. So in the meditation process, it gives you a kind of like a three different type of like examples. Like one is like a those when the river, which have like a lots of how you say eruptions, and there's a river which is like very gently moving, and there's the ocean which have really depth and still and form. So the first meditation in the nature of the mind, when I mentioned earlier, after you are trained to not to identify with the thoughts and the emotions, but able to observe, none of following. And during that kind of process, is considered as like a erupted water, as a river, or river that have lots of eruption. Basically, lots of in a reaction. Basically, I think the reactions happens not from your side, from the emotions, because usually you identify and you accept and you roll together. Now, in these stages, you don't roll with the thoughts and the emotion. You don't identify with the thoughts and the emotions because of that kind of state. Basically, I don't think so. Inherently, there's some kind of reaction through the emotions and thoughts, but basically, the feeling and that process individual person go through is that kind of like a pull and push. So, due to that kind of state, so so here the meditator able to maintain that kind of a cushion, able to maintain, not identifying with the thoughts and the emotions. So again, it depends to the individual meditator how much profound you are able to eliminating, in the early process, emotion, then observing how it appears for things to that emotion, and what's the nature of that emotion. Then you took some level of a process, analytical process to eliminate. It depends how profound you're able to do that. Okay. So anyway, doing that, mm, is basically considered that state is the most rough and the most challenging, the most, how you say, vulnerable state of your meditation. Individual person can drop, individual person can be. So here, in this process of time, there's also in obsessions, individual person advises to do a lot of merit accumulations and purification practice. And basically being into a very mindfulness mental state. So, once individual person kind of go through that process and kind of cross through, go beyond that, then it is considered as like the river without eruption. Napagyuwa. So in that state, there's no reaction from the emotion and the self. Kind of like a peace, kind of like a ceasefire between emotion and between yourself. Anyway, that kind of like a stillness, never gyua. And of course, in that state, it is without effort. Again, that is the effortlessness. So that is the second in that part. This is the way individual person have the chance to really to see the nature of the mind. In that time, in that period of time, there is a individual person have the kind of like a first counting, or to able to see, or able to experience, and able to know the nature of the mind. Okay, nature of the mind, and meditator into that stage already. Do that have a shine? The question comes that meditative practitioner, do they have already shine or single pointed concentration is supported by physical and mental suppleness? Not yet. Okay, but the question comes: did individual practitioner found the object of a shine meditation? Yes, at that time, individual person, he or she, found it, the object of a meditation. From the Mahamudra point of view, I'm not talking about like there's many different objects which is explained in the Lamrim. When you're trying to do a similar maybe shine, the shine about into the mind, the nature of the mind, then that time is kind of like establishing the object, able to establish the object. Now in our mind, the question comes. No question, okay. I think I have a bad habit saying this in the classroom is a question and a question. In the nature of the mind, mind of a faith, or mind of a compassion, or mind of a wisdom realizing emptiness, or this kind of different categories, is nothing is like that. It is just general mind. Okay, when you say general mind, it's basically even in Tibetan language, Salsam Nyongsam means mere luminous, mere experience. It don't have any experience of something. There's nothing like that. Mere luminous, mere experience. Okay, and of course, I think one of the Lama Disha's teachings also once that Lama Disha's text, which really give furthermore explanations in that second stage, as like a mind becomes very peaceful river, or that state. Mind is not, your minds and emotions and thoughts are not pulled by the past history and the future's hope. Are able to be into the middle subject madhyamika, or subject middle path, or whatever we label, able to be into that. Because of that kind of a balance, the concentration, there is a certain level of a freedom from gross mental distraction, gross mental sinking into the second stages. Gross mental sinking and gross mental distraction basically means, it is, the question comes, it is a totally blind, or nothing happens in their thoughts and the emotion? No, it's still happening, many things happening, because we have a karma and karmic imprints, and they are very powerful. Things, the illusions happens, but your mind is not caught into those illusions. So that is the difference. Things happening, thoughts, emotions are erupting, but there's no struggling, and there's no pull and pushing, or all that kind of, like usually how we react into those things. So nothing happening. So freedom from grossest level of a mental distraction and grossest level of a mental sinking. And because of those quality, it able to find the nature of the mind. And if you further ask, what's the description? Mere luminous and experience. Okay. Then individual practitioners from the shine, nine methods, semne tabgu. In the second one, be pretty much clear to close to like a semne dumba, means the seventh stage of the mind, and the geba, 8. Now, however, when it becomes this kind of a mind, a concentration, single-pointed mind, able to observing object as a mind, in some of the text, here's a philosophical text, there's some discussion of a rangrik, which is a self-cognizing consciousness. And self-cognizing consciousness from the Madhyamika point of view, such a consciousness doesn't exist. But still, you want to go there? Maybe in the meditator, I think we don't care self-cognizing consciousness exists or not exists. Okay. So now the most important part is the third level, is like the ocean. Ocean which is considered, there's eruptions or there's waves in the surface level, but the deep, is very still, and no matter how much that things happen, it's still able to stay still. So in the 9th stage, that have a still the most perfect concentration, but it don't have this kind of like a supported by physical suppleness and the mental suppleness. That's whole another level of to able to get shine, concentration have to have this kind of like a quality, physical suppleness and mental suppleness. So anyway, here, basically, in a subtle mental sinking and subtle mental destruction, as like the wave of the surface of the oceans is just going here and there. But the deep, the depth, the water is still able to be still and not able to erupt. In a similar here, in that becomes the ninth stage of the concentration in the nature of the mind. Now, then of course, basically in that moment, there is also there's a individual feeling of how you say, some level of a clairvoyance and some level of even the sense consciousness, how it reacts with the objects becomes in a different level, and clarity of individual sense consciousness also being transformed. Is so detailed experience, and because of that, your awareness experience is so free from grossest level of conceptual activities, that kind of like a clairvoyance and so on and so forth. This kind of like a mental qualities is also expressed, and sometimes due to that, in the text is also mentioned that sometimes individual person get now I saw or view or experience the ultimate nature of the mind, and there's this kind of like stages that individual need to be careful, and not only that, in the ninth stage, once also there's this kind of like a chingwa tamo, or like almost kind of like a feeling that you have gained the perfect concentration. You are still having liberated from the subtle mental sinking and the subtle mental distractions, but you're still feeling because of the depthness of the concentration. And there's this kind of like a confusions and so on and so forth. This kind of explained it. But I think the point over here, the question still comes: did that person obtain, and how to see the ultimate nature of the mind? So that's that's really the main case over here. So. So from the Gandhin Kagyu Mahamudra tradition point of view, even individual reach over there, individual over there is still just conventional nature of the mind able to realize, but not the ultimate nature of the mind, not the ultimate nature of the mind. And even in some in the commentaries. In Mahamudra commentaries, almost because of the mind being free from conceptual activity, it's also trying to give mind is free from the 80 conceptual activities. And because of that, it's also identifying at that moment the subtle mind. Once you're that free from that, is only left is a subtle mind. So nyungme sen. Nyungma means like the primordial, the mind. So basically, practitioners able to awake the primordial mind. Now, of course, from the Giluk point of view, primordial mind able to awake, or the clear light mind able to awake, is not only you have to have a work with the whole, your body, speech, and mind together, not only gaining some kind of like a strength only by the mind. It is not, I think, is possible. So here's, how it identified is, some level of a difference. Okay, so anyway, again, my point is, although we call a Wondo practice, preliminary practice, but it's not necessarily, you have to understand that, okay, now I'm doing Wondo, nothing that I have to do with a Mahamudra training or, searching into a nature of the mind. It can be application, can be take side by side, through the Wondo practice. You do refuge, into the refuge experience, you have the, looking into the nature of the faith or conviction, and that kind of process, okay? So then also, not only that, you might feel, am I doing this only in my meditation session practice? And when I'm in off session, while we're in the, in off session, do I have, again, space for meditation in the nature of the mind? Again, from the Mahamudra point of view, all the experience, there is a space, there is a door, so Dharma in a daily life, which is basically Mahamudra in a daily life. You can have, that kind of opportunity to look at it. That's really the one of the important point. Now, another thing is, we as an individual person, we are drawn so strong with our senses awareness. And should we meditate? Is this the possible, or should we to meditate into a nature of our sense conscious awareness, or that kind of respond? I think. Meditation, when we say nature of the mind, when it comes there, I think sense consciousness have nothing that much rule. Sense consciousness are just like the door to distraction, or just that's all, not more than that. So, meditation, the nature of the mind, it is nothing have to do, not even. What is the meditation, the nature of the mind of a sense consciousness or sense awareness? My point of view, I feel it is a individual, although they are really the main, how you say, manifesting or the grossest way we appear, but I think when you meditate in the nature of the mind, I think sense consciousness never ever involve into the object of that meditation. Maybe, that's my point. The reason why I was thinking of that is basically meditation in the nature of a mind, as I mentioned earlier, individual person have to have a feeling that samsara and nirvana, or all phenomena, the root or source of that should be some where it comes from. Concept of ultimate truth is somehow many philosophical worlds or religious interpretation comes something ultimate source. Okay, some way. There's so many things happening, but where is the beginning, or what is the source, if we are asked a question, that so much comes related with the ultimate truth. And all phenomena of the nature of a mind is the source. When it's a mind is source, it doesn't mean the individual mind is the source. Well, even it becomes more complex when we talk a world. individual's world exists. Whatever appear for me, whatever I experience, this only through my karmic result. So therefore, it's only for me, only my world, and that only exists in my world. And as like that, also individual is like that. So phenomena of the nature of a mind, it is an individual's mind. Maybe it's not individual's mind. Maybe it's a both. So that's okay. So so again, now the Shine meditation. Now we'll go one more back. With, for example, refuge. Of course, it have a the question comes: can we cultivate? Can we train our concentration mind with a refuge training? Can we train our mind concentration training on concentration with a one thing that kind of like specific object? And I think can be once the object is a very individual, it can be method, it can be some kind of like a supporting condition for cultivating shine and concentration. But in a lamrim, like for example, like an object, there's many different objects explained in the lamrim. Like for example, external objects such as but anyway, the object finally have to transform into the mental object, and cultivating some kind of like a keeping stillness into that object. I have one friend, monk, who came from Tibet, and he finished his geisha, and then he went to Dharamsala to do a retreat and meditation in the mountain. And then somehow he became well known for having really good concentration. One day we talked it, and he said, for 4 hours he can stay very still into the object, whatever he meditating. He says 4 hours. He's able to stay. But later what happened is, I think His Holiness sent him to in southern part of India. There's one old geshe, and after 1959 he went to retreat, a long-term retreat between Bhutan and Tibet border, and he's kind of like because of his training in meditation, concentration, and so on and so forth. He's also well known for having clairvoyance. And the year that I was doing my final exam, he was from Ganden monastery, so the Ganden invited him to stay in the Ganden and train some more another, if individuals who are interested to training in the Shine. So that's the abbot's idea. So they invited him to southern part of India. So that's my final exam. So some of my friends were just curious. Did he really have clairvoyance or not? So we wasn't too honest. So we pretended like we have some question. We went to we went to see him. I didn't went first inside. Some of my friends went first inside, and I think one is quite serious. He's the one, another one I know. He told me because he told me he's curious. He wants to go ask. So the first two of them, when I waited on the door, so when I saw the answer was very straightforward. You know what the answer is. The Geshe, the meditator, he scolded for both of them. I didn't went inside. I left. I know the one's answer, so I just left. So anyway, he was the who known for having really high state of concentration in the meditation, any more further than that. So anyway, my friend, which it was assented to him to training under him. Then he told me that, basically he mentioned to advice came like he told to look into the Buddhist Asanga's text called Bodhisattva Bhumi Changsa. He told him to look at that text, and that's all. He didn't really give more further than that. He told me that. Then that was his. He came to a certain part of India, and he was. That's interesting. I have one yogi friend. He's very amazing. Those yogis, their mind is freedom from very very freedom, very independent. So anyway, he told me when he finished his Madhyamika study, then he really don't wants to go and Geshe and all those things. Then he wants to go to dedicate his life to do a retreat. So he was joined with the yogis in Tibet. Then later they came to India, and I think they spent all the group of yogi in the Dalawasi. And the main teacher, Chu Gyöben Rinpoche, one is known as one of the great teacher in Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life. He is known as for that. So anyway, he told me, I'm kind of like curious. Do you get lots of teaching every day, or how things works? How often you get chance to interact and get detailed? And he mentions all the yogis get chance twice a month. When they have the Sojong, full moon and new moon, twice a month, and only one. You ask the question, he will respond. That's it, no further. So whatever answer he gives during that conversation, you just full concentration into that. It may not satisfy you or not whatsoever. That's it. Then rest of the week you work, you make your own effort for the clarification. He mentioned that's their training. Is just no ready-made things that kind of fix and puts on you, and that's his main training. That rest of the work, they have to kind of like pull out for your own merit accumulation and the study. So I think. Some of the nun, APMT nun, Champachuki was somebody sponsoring for him to, dedicating and get his shine. I think Champachuki was a sponsor for him. I'm not sure who's the. And during that time, some of those teachers told me that, maybe he's into the, he's having kind of between the subtle mental, subtle mental thinking, and the Shine meditation is, I think he's in between that kind of level. Subtle mental thinking, it have the stillness into the object, it have the clarity of the object, stillness and clarity, and everything's there. But when we explain from the words, it says mental, some level of energizing mental quality is amazing. So purpose of a Shine meditation is still not losing the quality of the wisdom. And sometimes individual person can have a lots of peace and content mental states, non-erupting by conceptual activities, but none having that kind of like sharpness and alertness. And that is also considered as a one extreme. So here, in the second stage, as I mentioned earlier, like the river, is stillness. At that moment, you are free from distractions, Gosu's level of distraction and mental thinking. So because of that, I think the meditation will have some level of losing the alertness of the mental, alertness of the, alertness of the sharpness of the awareness. And that's, I think, is a natural process. Sometimes once you climb, you climb very, then once you reach in some level of summit, it's naturally taking a break or something that you may fall into one extreme. So anyway, in the second level, like the river, there is that none kind of like energizing our wisdom aspect of the thoughts. But once you go to the ocean at the third level, eruption happening, but the stillness is still there. At that part is now stillness is there, but still trying to awakening your sharpness of your, and that becomes the purpose of a Shine meditation, is to able to get the lakdong, special insight. Okay, special insight. So that's really the point for doing a Shine. Otherwise, you just basically, subtle mental thinking, almost no emotions, no feelings, no, you're content, but somehow like even in a Lamrim meditation, it's mentioned that almost you're wasting your time. So, that kind of things. Anyway, maybe we don't need to worry at this moment in time. But there's this kind of stages. And also in the meditation, once you, after reaching the lakdong, also Shine, the meditator, I feel like it is like a training. Is like a but what individual practitioner does is go through Shine meditation and have a go very stillness and awareness. Then without releasing your meditation, then immediately jumping or reacting or regenerating very, very grossus mind, very, very grossus mental states, intentionally trying to generate it. And after generating that, then again going back to Shine, stillness, free from conceptual eruptions and anything. Going back to that. And coming back, going back, that kind of meditation also. So the question comes, beginner trainer in the meditation concentration, should we do that or not? I think in the once we reach into the second level, like the river and it's still moving, without any kind of like a pull and pushing, the eruption that you have to fight. Once you peace, some level of a peace, once you establish into your concentration practice, individual to strengthening that concentration, and also it's good to bringing those powerful emotions, and also immediately going down into. So it is just like a yoga. It is like when you do a physical yoga, you do all kind of sorts. You doesn't just do one kind of dimension. You're trying to go in many different dimensions. And similarly, in a concentration training, it's good to have that kind of flexibility, basically flexibility, and able to go back. Even the thoughts, those powerfully erupt, tensionally trying to erupt, then again the mind to jumping back to still. And this is also quite fun to do it. Your success or not success, I have no idea. But anyway, it gives you some kind of path, way to work. And, meditation, definition of a meditation is a familiarization, kompa. And familiarization, once you have such a familiar, so that is the main. This will be very powerful once we caught into a very powerful emotion, not by intentionally. Let's blame for our karma, due to karma, and once you have been in a control environment in this kind of training, once we have able to, shift immediately, that kind of training, and then this kind of helpful in once you are tense emotions, mental states, then you are trained into the meditation session, able to kind of like shift totally opposite states, and it's good to do that. Otherwise, once we are totally strong, falling into very strong, until the final part is until wisdom realizing emptiness. Once we doesn't having, we will, even if we have a concentration, we will face this kind of eruption of an emotion. Eruption of an emotion can happen, but it depends, non-reacting, non-responding, or sometimes responding. And once you're at the first stage, you're fighting. In the second stage, you're free, but it can be an obstacle. Okay. 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 Now, although I haven't gone through detail of the Ngondu, Tambo Ngondu Talalaps, and also now I'll say few more and then I'll stop here. Earlier I mentioned these two things in analyzing how things appear for the subject mind, and that's, I think, the lots of Rime scholars, the scholar who have a well trained in the all, Madhyamika tradition, Mahamudra tradition, Dzogchen traditions, also some of those practitioners emphasize nangsul takpa, in analytical process of how things appear. And that's, I think, the way to see the ultimate nature. Looking into the mind itself not really brings you to see the ultimate nature. Once you look at how things appear for that mind, and not only that, even one more further step, how it apprehend that mind. So here, the main thing is meditation in emptiness. Meditation in emptiness. We need to train our own self. Let's forget all those logics, dependent originations, and all those fancy logics. We just leave aside. I think number one is we have to, pretty similarly like a Mahamudra meditation, how things apprehends by your own mind, how things appear for your own minds, able to detect those different subtleties, not just like going like, basically, kind of like a slow motion kind of way to look at it into subject-object experience, and not like a general conclusion, duality appearances, we can say that, but in a much more detailed way to look at it. So training into a meditation in emptiness is the first step, is looking into mind and how it experienced the object, and particularly in the self-grasping, and how it experienced the things, the object, and the emotions also, anger, how it experience. We might have a very simple, straightforward conclusion, but don't satisfy with that. Look at much more details, how things appear and how things it apprehend. General advice, I say, we are very easy to how it apprehend. We can detect that because of the powerful emotion and so on and so forth. But to meditation in emptiness, individual person need to have the capability to see how things appear. How things appear. Not just the grasping part, because of the power of the emotion, we can feel that very quickly. But appearancing level, that's the much more challenging. And that is the ground where it gives you the, there's the access for the true story, the ultimate truth. As they appear, things that exist and not exist, without interrupting of a grasping part. We need to be able to, in a grasping part is already too powerful emotion, and as a grasp, how you exaggerate doesn't exist, that part is quite easier, but that doesn't complete the whole reality, how things exist. So it's much more for appearancing level. And how we able to do that, it takes its own certain level of a concentration. Do we have to cultivate shine related with that issue? I don't think so. But there's a certain level of a concentration takes to able to detect that how things appear for your subject mind. And that's I think the first step in the Shantideva's mentioning. When you say recognizing an object of negation, we immediately go with the grasping mental states. I think is that not the full story. It's have to go more with the appearance level. And that's really very, very, for our mind, this ordinary mind is hard to distinguish. Of course, theoretically, we can distinguish, but to the experiential level, we are not able to distinguish. The appearing and the grasping is almost like one thing. Now, of course, philosophically speaking, when we talk like a knowledge obstacle and affliction obstacles, we talk like the seeds and the imprints. Those are different levels. And you all are here, huh? So anyway, just checking you are there. Uh, the mainly okay. Uh, mm, oh, sorry. I was just talking whole takeover and seeds and imprints. In Sunday nights, in seeds and imprints. Sunday night, 9 o'clock, seeds and imprints. Okay. Mm, uh, even I forget why I'm talking about that. Okay, that's the sign to stop.